splash hit. Oh, yeah. And he hits one high. He hits one deep. McCovey called. Out of here. Oh, now they can put a number up with a splash hit sign now. And they are. Got a splash hit. J.J. Snow with a splash. And that was a water shot. High drive to right. Headed to the water. It is out of here. And this game is over.
Hi Giants fans, welcome to the Splash Hits podcast with me, Charlie Baldwin. Today I am joined by the admin and founder of @SF Giants UK, David Gibson. How are you doing today, Dave?
I'm good, thank you, Charlie. Not too bad. Yourself?
Yep, I'm good, thank you. Good to hear that. And with me also is the co-founder of the Splash Hits podcast, Ben Salvin. You all good today, Ben?
Yeah, all good. All good here.
Good. So, since we last joined you 2 weeks ago, the Giants lost the series 2-1 to the Marlins on the road, beat the Phillies 2-1 on the road, took 3 out of 4 from the Phillies at home, and then beat the Rockies 2-1 at home as well, which then takes us up to the most recent series against the Padres, which was also on the road. So to get into it, in Game 1, Logan Webb faced Yu Darvish. Webb went 6 strong innings, allowing 3 earned runs with 7 hits, 4 strikeouts, and 1 walk in a game that the Giants lost 3-2. The recently called up Zach Littell and Sam Selman each pitched a scoreless inning. Buster Posey hit a first-inning solo home run to put the Giants on the board. Evan Longoria hit into a double play with the bases loaded, scoring an RBI inning for the Giants' only other run of the game. And Logan Webb made one mistake pitch on a 2-run home run that ultimately decided the whole affair. So, without further ado, the one thing that most Giants fans were talking about after that game was umpire Adam Hanari's strike zone, which, in the most polite terms possible, was not good. But, according to his umpire scorecard, he was 91% accurate and 97% consistent, when 90% plus is rated as an A. But as we all saw, there were the awful calls, especially for the Wilmer Flores strikeout in the 9th, where there were 3 pitches all nowhere close to the plate, and even Buster Posey at one point got 2 pitches from Darvish, exactly the same pitch, exactly in the same spot, well off the plate. The first one was called a ball. He got the next one again, which was then called a strike. So obviously he looked back to Hanari and went, yeah, what's going on? So Dave and Ben, can you remember the last time we saw an umpire that bad? And do you think that unfortunately helped to decide the game? In terms of it going against the Giants in the end? I'll go to Dave first and then Ben.
We're seem to be a lot of poor umping decisions this year in particular, but we have seen it in the past with Hernandez, and Joe West and players like that. Umps like that make the game about themselves, but it was terrible, and I'm not sure, looking at that scorecard, how that's possibly the same game that we saw. I'm not sure how they go about getting the accuracy with where it says established zone, and it has those called strikes in the established zone, and it doesn't matter if it's established zone, the hitter can't do anything with it. So it doesn't, that's where I'm all for automated strike zone myself. I'm guessing people are heading that way, but did it affect the game? Yeah, definitely. I think we was only 1 run behind, and taking the bat out of Flores' hand there was just crazy. I kind of think maybe he set himself up to fail there when he looked back and had a word or two, or a pointed stare at the ump there, and Melanson, give him his due. He just said, well, if you're going to give me that, I'm going to throw it there. And why Melanson can pitch against us and not for us, I do not know. I'll hand over to Ben because I'm just ranting now.
Yeah, it wasn't great, was it? There was those pitches to Flores, I think it was 3 of them all on the outside corner. And was it 97% you said, Charlie, that he was consistent on the zone? consistent's fine, but if it's consistently bad, that's not helping anyone. I think one thing you've got to look at when you look at a strike zone, if he's giving a little bit higher, a little bit lower, a little bit in, a little bit out, it's fine. I don't mind that, because then it's up to the pitchers to go, all right, every pitch that's slightly in is going to be called a strike. Then by the ninth inning, you should know if it's slightly in, it's going to be a strike, even if it's maybe just off the plate. But these three were way off. And Flores has had a slow start, but he's still someone that can hit the ball out of the park. He's not he's a power hitter for us. I think he led the team in home runs last year. So it's a shame. And that could have been the difference between a 2-1 series and a 1-2. But we're 3-3 against the Padres, all of them at Petco Park. I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Ben. Looking at the bigger picture there, we are 3-3 against them. I don't think we've talked about this so far on Splash Hits Pod, but where are you guys on the potential of robo-umpires at the beginning of the season? And has this game changed your mind on it at all? Because to me, I still like the human element of, as long as they're consistent and they're sensible, of umpires like having their own strike zone. And to me, the bad umpires are quite rare, like when you think of Joe West and Angel Hernandez. But has that game changed your opinion on it at all? And then again, I'll go to Dave first and then Ben.
Yeah, like I said, I'm for automated strike zones now, and I can appreciate the human side of the game, but I want my human side of the game to be the people playing the game, not the people officiating the game. They're there to make sure it's played right into the rules, and those strike zones aren't to the rule. So I don't think it would help them. It wouldn't get rid of their job. All they need is an earphone in and a buzz if it hits the strike zone, and if it says nothing, it's missed the strike zone, and they call it still. They still do everything else. They can take the time to worry about the rest of the game and not so much about that, because there's been a lot of crazy ump rulings on some other things, not just strike zones. So yeah, I think it would help umpires, it would help hitters, it would help pitchers, because you'd have a consistent zone for every game and every pitch. So yeah, I'm for it.
I wouldn't say I'm for it in that I'm for the DH in the National League. I think that 100% is something that should happen with the strike zone. Not sold either way. I don't hate it as it is. I think if they are to change, then one, it has to be quick. It can't be a long delay. I'm sure they can do that. Instant, so we don't miss a call. It just all flows naturally. And then the second point is, and I listened to a podcast about the strike zone. It was on Baseball America podcast, which are very good. I can't remember who the guest was at the time. It was about 6 months ago, and they were talking about the two different ways, because they've tried the automated zone in, I think it's the Pacific League or one of those leagues, and even the two ways you can have it, and where it crosses the plate is like a flat screen, and if it goes through there, it gets given as a strike. But the other one was like a box, so a pitch could be clearly a ball to everyone to see. It dips down at the end, maybe catches the slightest little bit of the back of the box, and they were giving that a strike. So it depends on what system they use. If it's a flat screen at the front of the home plate, then I think it's good. Then you've got to then make the question is, how much of the ball has to go through that plate? Is it 50%, more than 50% to be called a strike, or just any of it? Because once again, you could have the smallest little scratch on that and the rest of the ball be outside. So I think it's quite a complicated one that for Major League Baseball to sort out.
Yeah, interesting points there, Ben. So kind of like VAR there, where like the football or soccer is for our American listeners, where the ball has to be completely over the line for it to be a goal. And we won't get into that, but there's been a lot of a few issues there as well, shall we say. But just one more point on this. To me, I felt that Gabe Kapler should have come out at that point, because it had been a really frustrating game with the umpire. I think that was a point where he should have gone on a rant, shouted, screamed, got thrown out, just to get the guys fired up in the dugout. Is that something you'd agree with, Ben, and then Dave?
I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, ninth inning especially. Don't think it's productive if you do it in the first inning. You know, if you're getting kicked out of the game over balls and strikes in the first inning, maybe it's a bit stupid. But in the ninth inning, go for it. Give him hell for leather. I agree, Charlie.
Yeah, it would be nice to see that side of him. I guess he's still taking the chilled, laid back route at the moment, but we have seen him when he was in Philadelphia ranting and shouting. So I guess he's comfortable, and he's comfortable, and he's thinks his batters can get it going. But you know, how much will it fire them up? I don't know. But yeah, I'm sure we will see it at some point, especially if we get something like that again. I can't see him not next time.
Okay, just moving on to something a bit more positive here. We got 7 innings out of Logan Webb there, and other than 1 or 2 mistake pitches, I thought he pitched really well. I actually thought he pitched better in this game than he did in his game against the Marlins, where he pitched 7 shutout innings there and also had the famous triple as well. So I'll go to Dave and then Ben. So what impressed you about Logan Webb in this outing, please?
Yeah, I think Logan Webb's just really finding his feet now. You know, it took him a while. We expected him to do big things, and you know, his against Marlins, he was superb. And like you say, it was just that one mistake that cost the Giants the game, really. But I think that's more of the, if you can't make one mistake and your hitters back you up to get back in the game, then that's more of a hitting problem, you know. So one mistake, you know, I think he's great, and looking forward to him in the next series to see how he goes. Get his ERA down with the others, maybe.
Yeah, he was very impressive, wasn't he? What I think was good is he got through those hitters 6 innings, only striking out 4. You know, he's not, you know, sometimes you go 6 innings, great outing, someone might get 8 or 9 strikeouts, especially nowadays, but he managed to do it, getting outs other ways. One thing I think he needs to work on is limiting the hits. He didn't, I think, maybe walk 1 person, if I remember correctly. So his command was there. Just maybe, you know, when you're giving up contact, some of those balls are going to find it through. But then he managed to get out of it without much damage. So no, he was good in spring training. So it's nice to see after a slow start, he's helping the team out.
Yeah, definitely, Ben. That was a good point that you made there about getting ground ball outs as well and pitch efficiency. Because as we know, if you're going for a strikeout, especially against a team like the Padres that can grind out ABs, it can take 5, 6, or 7 pitches. Whereas obviously, if you're getting ground out on 2 or 3 pitches, it's going to mean that you can go longer into the game. Another thing that impressed me was the returns of Zach Littell and Sam Selman to the bullpen as well, who had literally been called up just the day before. And Littell had been working on a splitter as well, which I thought was very effective. And we kind of know what the book on Selman is, but he, I think, was an unfortunate victim of the options game, shall we say, in terms of he had an option or 2 left, which kind of meant he was always going to end up at the alternate site for some point in time. So how did you guys think they did in their returns in that game? And I'll go to Ben and then Dave first, please.
Well, they did good because they kept us in the game, didn't they? And that's all you can ask of your relief pitchers. I think Selman, walked a couple of batters. So from now on, you know, if he's going to come back up and down, that's something for him to work on. But with the depth that we have in the alternate site, and you know, we've seen a few guys up and down already. Gregory Santos, it's only going to take someone to have a bad outing or 2. I'm sure we'll see them back. The conveyor belt of Farhan's bullpen just keeps on going. Especially now also that we made the trade and sent a reliever away to bring in Mike Tauchman. I'm sure we'll get on to more. He had a big impact in yesterday's game. But there's still lots of arms there.
Yeah, we're sort of we've got lots of relievers that we can mix and match with, but both pitchers did fall for the old base on balls. You know, it seems to be a big problem with our pitching at the moment is giving free passes, and that's something we need to get rid of, because it will cost us in the end. But you can't take it away from, like Ben said, they kept us in the game, pitched an inning each, and 0 ERA. So, can't be too fussy with that.
Yep, the bullpen looked great in that game, but unfortunately the offense didn't. We actually loaded the bases twice in consecutive innings in that game as well. And a big problem the Giants seem to have at the moment is cashing in, especially with the bases loaded. So what do you think the Giants could do better in those situations, guys? So I'll go to Dave and then Ben first.
Well, what they could do better is get hits with runners on, but it seems to be the small ball that's disappeared a bit from our game, which is something as a Giants fan we're used to seeing. So it seems to be solo home runs or nothing at the moment. So we've got to work the squeezes, get the bunts down, get a hit here or there. Some of it's going to be down to luck and just where you're hitting the ball. But definitely need to do better in those situations going forward, because it's only going to get harder as we go along the season. We've had a pretty soft start, so we need to get going. I think we've said this every podcast since we started.
Yeah, definitely making contact with the ball. We've had plenty of home runs, haven't we? All our runs almost seem to get scored, even by some unlikely people recently. He's been bringing back the 2010, 2012 days with his power. But I was having a look actually just before we went live with this podcast, and just some stats on the team. I think our BABIP, which is balls hit in play, was around 270, 271. So it's about league average, I think, if you're looking at that. So once we're putting it in play, it's not like our BABIP is 220 and we're just getting undone by great defensive plays, and that will even out. When we're putting it in play, it's been fair. So hitting barrel on the ball, I should say, more often is something that we need to do with runners in scoring positions. And you're grounding in, I think it was game 2, if I remember correctly, we grounded into maybe 2 or 3 double plays. So in situations like that, just not giving up the easy double outs.
Yeah, Ben, I think something we need to do better as a team is kind of adapt the offensive approach in that situation. I know the selectively aggressive approach has worked well at times this season, but I think if you can get a fly ball out there and it's not really in your hitting zone, but it is up in the zone, I think you've got to go for it and just take the one run and not try and hit it over the wall for a really unlikely grand slam. And speaking of grand slams, or what was almost a grand slam, there was also the unfortunate Darren Ruff. We all thought it was a grand slam, but then it wasn't a grand slam, which for me was the most deflating moment of the season so far, because I think that would have been a huge turning point in that game. Probably finished off the Padres, deflated them completely, put our guys on a high. Would you agree that that was probably the most deflating moment of the season so far? Because for me, I know we had the Mariners collapse in the season opener, but obviously they're not in the division and we're not up against them for the whole season. There's not really a rivalry there as well. So I'll go to Dave and then Ben, please.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting bat. I think Ruff looked a bit confused anyway, because I don't think he for a second thought it went out, but he still ran around the bases. But yeah, like you say, it could have been a few inches to the left, and could have been a completely different series. But saying that, there's a hit here or there, one hit here or there would have completely changed it in both the first 2 games either way. So it's just one of those things. Yeah,
that was horrible, wasn't it? So close, and he's almost deserved it. If you look at his at-bats, he's not had as many as a lot of the guys on the team. He's done really well, and he's hit for power. There's a reason why he's still with the team. Defense is poor, but he reminds me a little bit, maybe not as good, but a little bit like of Mike Morse that we used to have. Because not only does he hit for power, but he seems to hit for power in important moments. And he didn't do much wrong there, did he? His slugging is very good. But it's a tough one to take. Yeah, a real shame there. He's a guy I like. It would have been great to do that. But when I was to get that in, and I was looking at the results, so I didn't watch that game live. That was one that I watched the condensed highlights in the morning. And it's hit it, and you hear the home run call. And home run, grand slam. And I'm checking, thinking, we didn't score 4 runs, did we? I'm thinking, wait a minute. Then you see the close up, and you go, yeah, he missed it by a baseball probably. So proper sucker punch there.
Yeah, after that unfortunate loss in Game 1, we then moved on to Game 2. Anthony DiSclafani went up against Blake Snell. Disco gave up 300 runs on a first-inning home run to Manny Machado, but then allowed no runs in the next 5 innings. So he went 6 innings pitched, allowed 300 runs on 3 hits and 2 walks while striking out 3. Camilo Doval allowed a solo home run to Jurickson Profar in the 8th. He was replaced by Jose Alvarez. Jose Alvarez gave up a 2-run single to Jake Cronenworth, but Doval was responsible for the runners already on base. The Giants' run came on a Mauricio Dubon solo home run in the 5th inning, and the Darren Russ single in the same inning scored the other run. So the final score was ultimately 6-2 to the Padres. But other than that first inning, Anthony DiSclafani to me starting to look like a solid middle kind of pitching option for me. I don't think he's doing quite enough to be, say, a number 2 secondary ace or something like that. But we know at the moment he'll always go 5 or 6 innings. He'll always keep us in a game. So would you guys agree with where I am with him there, or would you rate him as slightly better than that? And I'll go to Dave and then Ben, please.
I think he's in the slot where he should be. I think all of our starting pitching is, well, far surpassed what I thought it would be this year, and I think we're either got the lowest or second lowest ERA in baseball. So of starting pitching, I think it's only Logan Webb who's over 3, isn't it? And the others are around 2. So yeah, he's been brilliant. Yeah, you can't ask any more from him really. I mean, that game's another one where it was close all the way through. Just that 8th inning where they blew it open there, but we were in it up until then, so, it was good. And DiSclafani's been brilliant, as is everyone else. And Logan Webb's now catching up, so, yeah, it's good going forward.
I think in the last podcast that we did 2 weeks ago, we all sort of praised the starting pitching, and him especially. We called him Disco because we struggled with the name. And he's not stopped. He's really, he's been really good, and as has everyone. Like you said, in that starting rotation, he did it once again. All right, it wasn't his best outing he's had, but he did enough to keep us in the game again. And on another day, if the bats were swinging a bit more, that's another one we could have come onto. And that rotation, though, it's looking like it's going to keep us in a maybe even a wild card spot all year. The way they're pitching, if it carries on, we're not going to be far off, or we will be there. And it's going to be because of them. The bats haven't really got going. We said we think they will a few weeks ago. They've not really got going, but it's not really mattered.
Okay, so we're all in agreement there that DiSclafani's having a good season there, but somebody that I know especially Ben was critical of in the last in-play runs was Mauricio Dubon, who hit a home run in that game, and he has been looking better with his offense in terms of hitting balls hard, but they just seem to be at people. But unfortunately, he's also had the base running gas as well. So in terms of the season he's having, do you think he's getting better on the offensive side, but he needs to work on his running game? So what have your thoughts been on Mauricio Dubon over the last 2 weeks, please? And I'll go to Ben first and then Dave.
Yeah, I was critical of him, and he's had a real mixed bag. Odd to see him hit a home run. I think he's going to get many this year, but he completely levered that ball. He got every little bit of it off a very good pitcher. So he did well with there. The base running gaffes were poor. You're a major leaguer now. You shouldn't be doing stuff like that. And it can cost you games when you do things like that. I think he's below par at the moment, but he's working his way up to maybe what we was expecting. I think when I was slating him on the last podcast, Dave reminded me that last year he started a bit slow, but got going a bit towards the end. So hopefully it's the same. And on a positive note, his defense is great. You know, whether that be centre field, whether that be shortstop when he filled in for Crawford, who was injured for a few games, and he's probably going to maybe need to play a bit second, which is where, you know, I think where we brought him up from. I think he was a second baseman. So, you know, Tommy Listella's gone down, Solano's gone down, so I'd probably see a mix of maybe him and Flores there going forward. So at least you know if he's in the lineup defensively, he'll hold up.
Yeah, I think that's the big point, isn't it? He's a player we need because he can play everywhere and play everywhere well. Especially this year, he's just been brilliant defensively, and like you say, slow start last year. I think the last 6 games he's not gone hitless in the last 6 games, so that's a big improvement already. So he's finding some gaps, and yeah, a home run, quite a short porch there, I think, down that line there to the Metal Company building, but yeah, he looked elated when it straight off the bat, the way he dropped that. It was fun to see, and it's good to see him start getting hits because we need him in the lineup for his defence. So if he can help offensively as well, then that all the better. Because yeah, we have got the oldest team in baseball, and it does seem we are seeing some of the downsides of that with people soft tissue injuries. So yeah, we need. I think he is our youngest player at 26, possibly. I think he's somewhere thereabouts. So yeah, crazy. Yeah. So hopefully the bat keeps getting better, and yeah, we're gonna need him.
Okay, speaking of the bats getting better, the Giants had lost 2 in a row there, so they were looking to avoid the sweep in Game 3. Kevin Gausman faced Blake Snell. Gausman went 6 innings pitched, allowed an earned run, which was, in my opinion, an unbelievable solo home run to Fernando Tatis Jr. It was well off the plate. I still don't know how he got to it, and even Gausman just looked at him thinking, how on earth have you done that? But other than that, he allowed 6 hits and a walk and struck out 6. Caleb Barragar, Tyler Rogers, and Camilo Doval pitched 3 shutout innings. Tommy LaStella had a single and a triple, collecting 2 RBIs on the day. Mike Tauchman hit a 3-run home run and also walked with the bases loaded to force in a run. Wilmer Flores was responsible for the RBI with a ground out, all of which led to a 7-1 Giants win, and means we are now tied with 3-3 for the season series of the Padres. So in this game at times, Kevin Gausman did look vulnerable, but he did tough it out against a very good lineup, which in my opinion is a true mark of an ace. And we've kind of had that recently in his starts, where the previous starts this, he didn't have his best stuff either, but he toughed it out then. And these games are always interesting to me when you see an ace pitcher who doesn't have their best stuff, because to me, the sign of an ace is to be that guy who, even when he's not on his A game, he still goes 6 or 7 innings and he still puts you in a position to win. Would you agree would you agree with that assessment, Dave and then Ben?
Yeah. I totally agree. Gausman's, like you say, tough it out. You know, give up that 1 run, but that was it. You know, 6 hits, 6 strikeouts, but he's a 2.04 ERA, so there's not much more we can ask from him. And the bat showed up for him for a change, which was amazing, and just shows you, you know, if we can get those bats going in some of those other games, we'll be blowing the Padres out the absolute water. They cannot hit us. And I just don't... The Padres are not as good, from what I've seen with the Giants playing. They're not as good as everyone's making out them to be. You know, they've got the flashy players. You know, the side's not as big as some of the egos on that team. They've got flashy players that make 1 or 2 plays every now and again, which are all scattered all over the social media. Oh, what a great double play. We see that all the time. That's nothing to us. We got some of the best double play, you know, from Crawford you'll ever see. But they're just not as good as everyone's making out. I just don't get it. You know, if we get a few more hits, we actually crush them. They can't hit our pitching very well. It's just, what's all the fuss about? Same old Padres, is what I say.
It's funny you both make those 2 points, because you've firstly, Charlie, about Gausman, and second, Dave, about the Padres, because they were the 2 thoughts I had in my head. One was that, yeah, Gausman has been so good that even when he's not at his best, he's limiting them to 1 run. he's getting out of trouble. And I was looking earlier at the free agents this year who are available, starting pitchers, and we're going to find someone big. I think that's clear. We're losing Crawford, we're losing Bell, possibly Posey. So maybe we sign someone to go fill in at shortstop. There's a lot of good shortstops coming, but then we've got Luciano in the pipeline. I think the person we should sign big is Gausman. I think he needs a good contract after this. He's been, all right, we'll see how it goes. But if it carries on, I think this is someone we need to extend. He's fantastic. And my second point that I had in my head, which Dave has alluded to, is about the Padres. I find them a bit odd. Everyone talked about the Dodgers series, and it was like watching postseason baseball. Both teams going at it. Now, when I didn't watch any of those games, only a little bit of highlights here and there. But when I watched the games against the Padres, they hit a home run. It's like they've just won the game in the NLDS or the NLCS. They make a good defensive play, and they did make good defensive plays. But it was like unbelievably overhyped. And I'm not saying don't have fun. You're playing every day. Do have fun. I'm not this anti-fun person. But you're getting a little bit too pumped up every day. It's gonna wind them down.
Yeah, I think you're right. Surely it's gonna drain on them where they're this hyped all the time and they're not getting the results that they feel they should get. Clearly, but yeah, I'm glad you had the same thought. I thought, have I just gone out on a crazy limb here and I'm going to get absolutely roasted?
No, I was thinking that every time I watched them, this 3-game series, every time.
That's a good point. I think that's the difference between being under the radar and having all this pressure and expectations on you. So, as we know, all 3 World Series years, no one had the Giants outside of San Francisco going even to the playoffs, probably let alone the World Series. But then when the pressure's on, it's a whole different ball game. I think if the Padres, even if they don't win the division, I think the owners and the people even up above, AJ Preller, will be hugely disappointed there. And I think even 90 to 95 wins, some of the fan base will be massively disappointed as well with all the moves they've made and the media hype they've had around that. Whereas the Giants, we're 3rd place. We're going to finish in 3rd place by about 15 games. We're not going to do anything. Nice and easy, chilled as you go. Let's see what the guys we've got can do. Add Barr, add Ramos, maybe add 1 or 2 others as well around the deadline afterwards, and suddenly it gets a little bit more interesting. But going on to someone we just signed, Mike Tauchman had a huge game in that game with the 3-run home run and also the bases loaded walk as well. And I actually watched him play runs yesterday, and I actually asked Jack from New York Yankees UK about his view on the Tauchman trade, because I don't know if you guys noticed it, but what amazed me was Yankees Twitter absolutely went off on one against Brian Cashman, and it was like they'd traded an all-star or something. I couldn't believe it. So this is going to be a question in 2 parts, but just for Giants fans who may still be wondering why I actually traded for Tauchman. Unfortunately, although we are all big believers in Austin Slater, he's really struggled against right-handers. So Tauchman was brought in as the left-handed side of a platoon in centre field with Slater to hit against right-handers. So my question to you, Dave, is when I asked Jack about Tauchman, one of the things he said was he's very much an energy player, a chemistry player, a guy who brings a lot of positivity as well. And do you think that's something the Giants lacked after Hunter Pence was cut last season? And have you seen that from Tauchman so far? And then to you, Ben, another thing that Jack said was Tauchman was a guy who just needed a shot. I'm sure you've looked up his stats as one. You know, in 2019, he had a good year then, but ever since then, he's kind of been in and out, and he's not really had a good run of games. So do you think that it's literally a case of put him in that platoon, similar to what we do with Alex Dickerson in left field, and let's see what he's got? So I'll go to Dave with the intangibles question first, and then Ben with the more statistically leaning question.
Yeah, it does seem we have lost that clubhouse guy who hypes everyone up, and he's come in. I didn't know him at all. I don't follow American League, so I did not know him. And like you say, on Twitter, I didn't realise that they had such love for him or hopes for him, because I'd never heard of the guy. And he come in and he got like 3 hits, and he's all over the place. So yeah, if he can come in and give a boost to the teams, and hopefully that'll rub off and help with the hitting, because that's the only thing we're lacking at the moment. So yeah, it'd be good if you can see it. I can't say I've definitely seen it yet, but yeah, let's hope that is something he can bring to the club, because that would be good.
You're right, Charlie. I did look at his stats. Would be traded for him because I was aware of him. I knew he had a good year a couple of years ago. A stat that I like a lot is OPS plus, where 100 is league average. Anything below is someone you probably don't want to trade for. Anyone above is someone you probably do. And it was last year, which is he only, I think he had played 40 odd games. He was below, but the year before that, where he played a hell of a lot more and had, I think, almost 300 at bats, he had a OPS plus of 127, which is a good baseball player. Maybe he doesn't do 127 OPS plus this year, but he's got enough. He's hit a home run, a big one for us. He's got power. He looked good in centre field. Small sample size, but I think it's a trade that works for us because, like we've mentioned already, we have a lot of relievers, so we're able to give one away for an area that we needed someone.
Unfortunately, similar to Tauchman, Tommy La Stella had a big day as well. I think we've all been waiting for him to kind of come round with the bat, but then he left the game with a hamstring strain, which is looking like he's going to be on the IL for a while. So I'm expecting Jason Vossler, who we've seen a little bit of, to come up and replace him. And as Ben said, we do have other options to mix in as well. So I'll go to Dave first and then Ben. How do you see us filling the gap left by La Stella? Do you see anybody being the full-time leadoff like Well, I know he kind of shared it with Slater at times, but it was mostly him recently. And who do you see playing second base while La Stella's on the IL?
Yeah, the dreaded IL, which we, like I said earlier, seems to be getting a lot of at the moment. I think Flores surprised me this year with his defensive play, and I think we could play Flores there comfortably, and obviously platooning Dubon, really. But I could see, I would say I wouldn't necessarily want to be putting Dubon leading off at the moment, what with his running mistakes, but he could definitely fill in too. But yeah, I'd like to see Flores there, and Flores has struggled a bit with the bat so far this year, so hope maybe getting in there all the time and playing there and getting into a rhythm, and maybe it'll get him going. Maybe it's something he needs, because it'd be good to see Flores get going again.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be Flores and Dubon rotating for that spot, see if somebody can make it their own. And then with the leadoff spot, Farhan has obviously told the game to keep changing that lineup. We don't have a fixed lineup, so it would possibly be give quite a few people a go and see who takes the best punt at it. It might just be someone works there and you give them a couple of games in a row, you stick to it. I have no idea who that will be.
Yeah, the Giants are definitely getting tested for their depth in that point. And just quickly going back to the bullpen, where we have shown good depth, one thing that impressed me yesterday was Camilo Doval's 1-2-3 inning after obviously he'd had the unfortunate game in Game 2. So I just want to get your guys' views on what impressed you with his bounce back yesterday. And do you think that's a sign that, unlike, say, Gregory Santos, he does have the moxie and the strong-mindedness and willingness to be able to stick around after a bad outing and bounce back? And I'll go to Dave and then Ben first. And then Ben.
Yeah, I think Duval was brilliant. Like you say, that other game, it could have put a lot of people off, but he's come straight back. 2 strikeouts, got through the inning. Fantastic. But he didn't pitch that badly in the game that went badly, if you know what I mean. But I think the way he's bounced back, and that does show that he's someone that we can trust and use. No one's going to be perfect. Every reliever's going to have an inning that ain't so great. But if they can come back and then have an inning like that, you can trust them and put them back out there again in those situations. So yeah, it's good to see him get out there. And good to see him get the chance to go out there and prove that he can do it. Yeah, I do like him a lot.
Yeah, he's great. Anyone that can throw 100 miles an hour, I think he did it for the first time yesterday, is someone that we need to keep around. You know, he should be there more than not. I'm sure he will go to the alternate site or to AAA at some point. But I don't know, like you guys, I think I'd like to see him there more often than not.
Do you guys see him as the seventh inning option now as well? Do you think he's done enough to prove that even just for the short term he belongs there? Because I know going into that game, Gabe was kind of starting to use him a lot in that role. And he's also used him in the eighth inning as an alternative to Tyler Rogers at times. So do you think that's a role that he deserves to have for at least the short term? And I'll go to Ben this time first, please.
Yeah, seventh inning is where I like him. I think maybe he's got to learn a bit more about the league before we start sticking him in those high leverage eighth inning outings. Rogers has done fantastic, so keep him there and let him work his way from there.
Yeah, I think, like you say, he's been used in a couple of different positions, but you want to get him in there when it's not quite such a high leverage situation, just to see how he's going to go. But I'm not sure Gabe and Farhan are too fussed about having fixed positions for people. Where they seem to be happy to swap everyone around the 8th, 7th, 8th and 9th, depending on the situation. But in more traditional terms, yeah, I could definitely see him as the 7th, and then Rogers in the 8th, and then McGee in the 9th. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they use him and what situations they put him in, and see what trust they've got in him.
Yeah, I think that's good to end on a positive note there to wrap up the Padres series. So the next series the Giants have coming up against the Rockies, starting tonight. In game one, it's Aaron Sanchez against German Marquez, and we've seen Marquez already this season. So just some numbers against Marquez, which makes good reading for the Giants. Brandon Belt is 11 for 27 with a home run, 6 RBIs, and 1152 OPS. Brandon Crawford is 10 for 30 against Marquez with a home run, 3 RBIs, and 909 OPS. Alex Dixon is 8 for 17 with a home run, 3 RBIs, and 1350 OPS. And Buster Posey is 4 for 12 with a home run, 3 RBIs, and 974 OPS. But with that being said, the thing that worries me about Aaron Sanchez is the loss of velocity, as I know he was throwing basically 86 to 88 mile per hour fastballs or so in his last outing. And to me, this is like a big era of power pitching. It's not so bad if you can, say, throw 90 to 92 like Alex Wood does and then work off that. But for me, 86 to 88 is just too low, and there's eventually going to be a point where he starts getting lit up quite badly. And unfortunately, as we know from past experiences, that can happen at Coors Field. So I'll go to Dave and then Ben. Do you guys have confidence in Aaron Sanchez to keep his streak of good starts, or shall we say solid starts, going in this series?
Being in Colorado, I think you're worried about any pitcher throwing to contact, but I think I'm just hoping that we're seeing the velocity ramp up so that, you know, he proved he could recently throw that hard, but he needs to like build up to it because he's been out a while. So yeah, I think I like the matchup. If you're going to put him up against someone, I think Marquez is a good guy to put him up against because, well, we say this, but the numbers show that we should hit against Marquez, but we see how these go. But if we can get a lot of runs, then I don't think it'd be a problem. Like Sanchez said, he's getting the outs. You know, he's got a 2.22 ERA. You know, he's had 20 strikeouts. So yeah, if the velocity gradually creeps up, and it just shows that he is a really good pitcher. That even without that velocity at the moment, he can get it done and get the outs. So yeah, I think I'm confident for game one, definitely.
Yeah, we've talked about the starting pitching and how good it's been. He's probably the one where you're thinking, how much longer is this going to continue? But, you know, I don't want to say, oh, it's only a matter of time, because he's pitched so well and unconventionally. Yeah, I think the last start was as good as any, really, from him. His stuff, even though he's not, you know, hitting it in the low 90s, he's still keeping hitters off balance. And maybe when they're used to seeing 90 every day, someone comes in and throws mid 80s. Maybe it throws them off for the first at bat or two. Then he's, if he's going twice around the lineup, then the bullpen can carry the weight. So I like him. I think when we signed him, I thought if he can stay fit, he was such a good pitcher for a few years back in Toronto. I'm confident. I'm confident that he'll, even if it dips, maybe this will be the day. Hopefully it doesn't dip prolonged. Hopefully it's just a one-off Coors Field jinx.
With the numbers I quoted there for how successful we've been against Marquez, although he is one of their premier pitchers, but we've just seen him really well for whatever reason. And with what I was saying and what Ben kind of alluded to there as well about Aaron Sanchez's velocity and the potential issues that could come with that, and what Dave was saying about Coors Field. Do you both see this as being the classic Coors Field 12-11, 11-9 kind of high-scoring game out of the three? And I'll go to Dave and then...
Out of the three, I think, hopefully it will be high-scoring. I think Sanchez is going to be all right, and it'll be high-scoring for us, and that'll be it. There's only, out of the three games, that I think I wouldn't want to predict a sweep. I think I did on the very first one, and it happened. That was just more like early season bravado. We'll sweep the Rockies, don't worry about it. But 2-1 in the last one just shows you that a sweep's hard, even if the team's not as good, because weird baseball things happen, and the world happens, and human error happens. So, but I think we could get a sweep. With the only matchup I would be worried while watching is the Webb Gray one. And although Gray's got a high ERA like Webb, his ERA is quite good in Colorado, strangely. But I think we'd take this series, and if Webb can show what he has done, I think we could get the brooms out.
Yeah, sweep would be nice, but I don't want high-scoring games, because high-scoring games isn't how we tend to win games. We win games when our opposition scores 1 or 2 runs. So, if I'm waking up one day and seeing 8-7, my first thought, even before I've seen who the 8 is to and who the 7 is to, is going to be, crap. When I see, 6-1 or a 4-1, I know, okay, yeah, our starting pitchers had them and the bullpen's backed them up. But Coors Field is Coors Field. We've hit quite well there, as does everybody. But there's something about going there. At least one of those games, like you said, either them or you is going to score +8 runs, which is probably nowhere else in baseball like it. Maybe Cincinnati.
Yeah, I agree there, Ben. It is one of those parks where it can basically happen at any time just because of where it is and how it is. In terms of Game 2, it's Alex Wood against a starter that the Colorado Rockies haven't announced yet. So I'm going to skip over that one, as obviously if we don't know who we're facing, it's quite hard to judge and rate how it's likely to go. So as Dave mentioned there, in Game 3, it's Logan Webb against John Gray. John Gray is a former first-round draft pick. In the terms of numbers against Webb, Ryan McMahon, Garrett Hampson, Ryan Tapia, and Charlie Blackman all have 1,100 OPS or more against Webb, or that's in 8 at-bats for all of them, apart from McMahon, who's had 7. Brandon Belt is 12 for 26 against Gray with 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, and a 14.18 OPS. Alex Dixon is 3 for 11 with 2 home runs and 3 RBIs and a 10.91 OPS against Gray. Although Gray is having a good season so far with a 3.15 ERA this year, and it is also a contract year for him as well, so he does have that extra motivation to, sorry Rockies fans, be able to say, well, this is it. This is my last year in Colorado. I can pitch well, get out of here and play for a big contract. In terms of those numbers against Logan Webb, they are a bit worrying, but as we've said, he seems to have refound what he had in spring over the last 2 starts. So I think this will be a good test for him in terms of, is he past being the old Logan Webb where a team like the Rockies could traditionally put up 6 or 7 runs against him? So I'm going to go with an over-under here. So I'm actually going to go with a quality start. So do you guys think Logan Webb will pitch 6 innings and will allow 3 earned runs or less? And I'll go to Ben and then Dave, please.
Oh, it's a tough one, but I'm probably going to say no. Sorry. Yeah, probably no. He's a bit confusing. He's done well in his last start, but he's almost giving up a home run per 9 innings. But then you look at his BABIP, which is at 3.67, so that's quite unlucky. That's really high. So a lot of those contacts, hopefully, find gloves. But when you look at Coors Field, it's not probably going to be the day where the BABIP goes down. Is it when the ball gets put in play there? It tends to find those big gaps and tends to go over the wall. So yeah, I'm sorry, Logan, but probably not going to be 6 innings for you.
I'm going to stay on the Webb train and say he's going to go 6 innings. Yeah, go 6 innings. Jot it down. I've said it. I think he will. I think it'll be all right. It's going to be the game that's going to be scary, I think. And just for the UK listeners, that is the UK friendly one. 8:10 over here start. So get ready for the usual sitting on the couch tense.
I'm going to bet on the plus side, Dave. I think he's going the right way, and he is showing that he can work himself out of tough situations as well, although he is giving up the odd mistake pitch here or there. And I don't think he'll get under 3 runs, but I think he'll get exactly 3 runs, and he'll just about have the pitch count to make it. So just quickly, both of you going with 2-1, Giants win the series 2-1?
Yes.
I'm going for the sweep. I'm putting my faith.
I love it, Dave. I love it.
We're going for it. Let's do it. Let's go to Colorado, and then we got the Padres coming back into San Francisco. And we know they ain't as good as they say, so let's go.
I think our man, Mr. 90 wins, Mike Dowling, will be right there with you betting on the sweep, Dave. So me and Ben going for 2-1 there, and Dave going for 3-0. So this is one of the few times where I'm going to say I hope I'm wrong, and Dave is correct here. So we're going to move on to the prospect spotlight now. As interestingly, the Giants' assignments for their prospects in terms of the minor leagues and where they're going to be starting out in their minor league teams were announced earlier this week. So just for those fans who aren't familiar with how the system works, you've basically got Rookie League. You've got Low A, which is San Jose, High A, which is the Eugene Emeralds, Double A, which is the Richmond Flying Squirrels, and Triple A, which is the Sacramento River Cats, and then you've got the MLB level above that. So one thing I think we all thought was with the way that Heliot Ramos played in spring, and also in the way he's played at the alternate site as well, where he seems to be hitting a home run literally almost every other day, if not every day, he'd be getting a start in AAA, but he's actually getting a start in Richmond. So I'll go to Dave first. Is that quite surprising to you? And do you have any issues with that at all? And then the same question to Ben as well.
No, I don't have issues with it, but like you say, it does seem like he's been hitting AAA level pitching in scrimmages. I think they've just stuck to what they said they're going to do, but I don't think he'll hang around there very long. I think they'll promote through the leagues quite rapidly. I think with a lot of the prospects, especially the low A guys, some of them have been hitting some good pitching from Oakland, and I think that they might get very happy down there, and they might have to promote quickly just as, to move them on, because it might be a bit too easy for some of them. But yeah, I think Ramos will come up through and be promoted quickly, because I'm sure he's gonna mash while he's down there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I think us as fans sort of hoped he would go to AAA, and if the team carries on the hot start, then we could bring him up to really give us a push to maybe, post All-Star break, give us a push in a playoff run. But Farhan probably looked at the year, next year is the year we might compete. And this year, if we compete, it's a bonus. And I don't think he's the sort of person, or Scott Harris, to make sentimental moves. Not going to put him in AAA just because we've had a quick start to the year. I think their plan for him was always AA. They've always said that, and so they're not going to change from their plan. They're looking at Project Big Picture.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. I agree with you there. I don't think it'll really do him any harm either. If I remember correctly, he had actually less than 100 bats at AA anyway, so another 100 at-bats or so wouldn't really hurt him. So just for where some other standout Giants prospects are, the big one, Marco Luciano, he's starting in low A San Jose, along with the Giants' top pitching prospect, Kyle Harrison, and someone who I would advise everybody to keep an eye on, Luis Matos, who's a potential 5-tool outfielder. At the moment, he's on the kind of run to be comparable to, say, a Michael Brantley. He's an all-round good hitter, all-round great defender, but he doesn't hit for much power. But if the power does come, he could potentially be on a Mookie Betts kind of level. So he's very much a guy to keep an eye out for. Then there's also Luis Toribio as well, who sees the ball well. He's going to be a really high OBP infielder. At high A Eugene, there's Seth Corey, who's our second best pitching prospect, Will Wilson, Logan Wyatt, Patrick Bailey, and Hunter Bishop. At AA, along with Heliot Ramos, is Sean Jelly, who some analysts think will make the major league team at some point this year, and Sam Long, who we all saw in spring and we're all rooting for, because not only does he have a great story, he also does have great stuff as well. And he was a starter turn reliever who's now been turned back into a star again. And then after that, we have Joey Barr at AAA. So have you guys got any comments on any of those other prospects I mentioned? Ben and then Dave?
Yeah, the pitcher to look out for is Sean Jelly. Just because you can't miss him, he's massive. He's so tall. It's really weird. If you look at some of the clips of him pitching, it's just very odd. The angle he comes down, it's almost like he's throwing from a separate mound to everyone else. So when he comes up, we don't know if he'll be good for long, but I have the suspicion he'll be good at least for his first few starts, because the batters won't have faced anything like it.
Yeah, I think overall with our prospects, like Ben said earlier, Farhan doesn't go for any sentimentality at all, and thankfully doesn't listen to us, but because we'd have them all moving up very quickly. But I think it's worth looking at where they are, and they are probably all going to do really well at that level. So there's going to be a lot of people clamouring for them to be promote. But the bigger picture is, let's see, just give them time to settle in and see how they do over a longer term. But there's if people are near these minor league grounds, you can go and see some absolute cracking teams, some absolute stacked teams. So if you can go and see your minor league baseball, I know at Debbie McVegan, who it's a lot on Twitter, tweets us a lot. She's getting excited because she's near Eugene, so she'll be going down there to see Bailey and Bishop, and get out there and see them. I was even contemplating the old minor league telly thing. I was like, have I got enough time in the day to add more baseball to it? I don't know. Might have to stick with the highlights, but it should be fun.
That's it, Dave. Just not enough hours in the day, unfortunately. I'll be doing the same thing. And if you don't have time to, please do make sure you tune into Splash Hits Pod as well, because we will be doing the Prospect Spotlight on every single episode. So if you do miss something major, we will feature that for you. And just quickly before we go, please keep an eye on Bat Flips and Nerds. I know me and Ash both have articles that we're currently in the stage of think about writing, so there should be Giants material coming up over the next week or two. In terms of our partner podcasts, Torturecast, featuring friends of the show, Eric Nathanson, is recording today as well. So they'll also be looking at the Giants from their own unique perspective. And also they've been looking back at previous Giants eras recently as well, ranking like top outfielders, top infielders, etc. The latest Say Hey podcast is out as well, featuring Say Hey Rob and Say Hey Doug. The Rizzo cast with Steven Risotto featuring former MLB reliever Scott Linebrink is out as well. So I know that's not Giants kind of leaning, but it's an interesting insight into being an MLB player, an MLB reliever. And so if you've wondered what it's like to be in the game or what it's like to be a player, please do check it out. And thanks for watching and listening. And we will be back in 2 weeks or so. And go Giants!
Cheers, Charlie. Good job.
Cheers. See ya.